Located in Egypt are two main political groups. The largest, the Muslim Brotherhood, or also known as Hadi, and the other, the National Democratic Party, also called the NDP. Their hatred and spite for one another began in the 1980s, when former President Abdul Sadat was assassinated on October 6, 1981. The assassination was linked to professionally trained military soldiers associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. 8 days after the assassination, Vice President at the time since 1973, Hosni Mubarak, was sworn into presidency. Egypt was greeted with a deafening calm after he took over. The people knew they could trust him since they had been the vice president for close to 10 years. During his first year as president, he had kept a very neutral opinion to avoid conflict as much as possible until the country became peaceful again. One of these issues was whether Egypt should back away from peace with Israel or loosen ties to the United States. As his presidency continued, he no longer kept a neutral note in the conflict. He began to rig elections, causing a rise in the executive sector, which formed an administrative shell. Many Egyptians said this formed a barrier between the people and him. Not only did the people think that he didn't connect with them, he also had a noticeable age gap between the voters and him. The number of voters 30 and under was at 75% and is currently at 85% and growing. The country's growing age gap also brought about a new way of running the government. They wanted a democracy while the politicians and president wanted an autocracy. With no change, the people of Egypt, with the support of the United States, pressured Mubarak into giving them democracy. So on his fourth election in 2005, he allowed rival candidates, but the odds were stacked highly in his favor. This made the Egyptians take to the streets in protest, making Mubarak finally give up his power and name a vice president. He was later arrested 2 weeks later for receiving bribes from Hussein Sadat in the form of natural gas. After his absence, this left the power into the hands of the military, leaving the Supreme Council of Armed Forces to take the government. This group was very anti-Muslim Brotherhood. They showed this by imprisoning and killing close to 80,000, forcing what was left of them to go underground. But after the state of emergency was announced to be canceled in May of 2012, and the military giving the illusion of democracy, the Muslim Brotherhood put up a candidate for the presidential election, even after they promised not to. The candidate, Mohamed Morsi, was proven to be a better fit for Egypt when he won with 51% of the votes, shocking the nation and the military in charge. Once in office, he forced the retirement of the defense minister, army chief of staff, and the other senior generals. They were announced Sunday after the elections. During his first and only year in office, Morsi had been able to strip the judicial branch of their right to challenge his decision, allowed Islamic ideas to control the Constituent Assembly draft in December of 2013. This angered many Christians and women's rights groups, and in January of 2014, he banned political parties based on religion, which directly targeted the Muslim Brotherhood. This publicly declared his separation from the Muslim Brotherhood, thinking declaring his separation from them would give him more public support, which couldn't have been more wrong. Protests broke out over the recent guidelines, causing the 7-story Muslim Brotherhood headquarters to be looted and burned down. Morsi was then forced out of office and into a jail cell after the 19-day protest in Tahrir Square, leaving the military once again in power. They later formally dissolved Parliament on June 15th, calling it tainted with the Islamic ideas.